because, so often the vision of the film is just in my head, and it's my job to try to figure out how to get
Good morning, everybody, and happy Monday. It's November 10th, 2025, and I've got all your top stories to kick off your rush hour ride to work. Now, if you're a New England Patriots fan like me, it's nothing but W's right now. The Patriots are on a 7-game winning streak, Drake May is in the running for MVP, and, get this, we've also got some wins coming in for Baldoni and for the Justice for Clayton community. Is Christmas coming early or what? We'll get into all those stories in just a moment. But first, not such a good day for Jeremy Renner. It looks like he's in trouble. Some receipts have surfaced from his former director, directly refuting Renner's claims. It's starting to look like the next Blake versus Baldoni situation, and honestly, I wouldn't want to be in Jeremy's shoes right now. Innocent until proven guilty, of course, but we'll unpack that story and much more, starting right now on The Rush. Now, let's talk Baldoni for a minute. I'll be covering what his attorney said on the TMZ podcast, a statement that directly contradicts their earlier report, which sparked dozens of false articles and a few premature victory laps from folks like Nick Vell. We'll break all that down shortly. But first, how about this? Starbucks has done it again. We're in the middle of a global cost of living crisis. People are struggling to afford groceries, and what does Starbucks release? A $30 bear-shaped mug. And the crazy part? It's sold out everywhere. I kind of want one myself, but good luck finding it. Reporters say they had to practically give up a credit card and 3 pints of blood just to borrow one for a segment. According to a Starbucks spokesperson, even though they shipped more of these barista cups than almost any other holiday item this season, they still sold out in record time. If anyone out there has one, please send it my way. They're even fighting over them in New Jersey. The 20-ounce glass barista cup, which launched Thursday, is officially the season's most in-demand item. It's adorable, I'll give them that. And speaking of adorable, let's move on to some Clayton-eared news, our own little barista himself. Over the weekend, we got breaking updates from the state of Arizona via Laura Owens case. New court documents reveal fresh indictment charges. Yes, Christmas really did come early. Clayton didn't, but the charges sure did. I won't go through every single one, but for anyone new here, you should know. I'm a star witness in this case. That's right, I can take a little victory lap of my own. The trial is shaping up to be absolutely wild, and with new information surfacing, it might even get delayed. There's speculation that Laura Owens' mother could be charged as a co-conspirator. What's already confirmed? Multiple counts of forgery and, yes, perjury. Perjury, perjury, perjury. No, I'm not repeating myself for effect. They really hit her with that many counts. These are all separate charges. This woman truly has a talent for lying. The documents go into detail about the different instances of perjury, the false sworn statements, and even identity theft. On or about March 1st, 2024, she allegedly made knowingly false statements under oath, claiming that Laura Owens never sent an ultrasound to Greg Gillespie. But we've already proven that wasn't true. Our community, the Justice for Clayton group, uncovered and shared a massive amount of evidence. It's all still online. Together, we exposed a con artist and stopped her in her tracks. Metaphorically speaking, of course. The charges also include accusations of identity theft, and we already know exactly whose identity she stole. She impersonated a woman from Texas named Stormy, who had once shared an ultrasound online related to invisible twin syndrome, a heartbreaking condition where one of 2 twins doesn't survive. It's unimaginable what that mother went through. But Laura took that same ultrasound, used it as her own, and sent it to Greg Gillespie, claiming he was the father of her unborn children. The lies were relentless. Even though there's video proof of her sending it while on the phone with Greg, she still denied it. To his credit, Greg Gillespie kept meticulous records and provided solid evidence. Unfortunately, 5 years ago, no one paid much attention. But when Laura tried to pull the same stunt involving the Bachelor's Clayton, everything resurfaced. And this time, the truth came to light. The more you look into it, the more disturbing it becomes. Our audience, truly the best out there, stepped up in an incredible way. Many will remember that we raised funds for Stormy's surviving son. One of the twins didn't make it, but the other did. And when his birthday came around, our community donated generously to make sure he could celebrate. No questions asked, just kindness in the middle of such a heartbreaking story. Now let's look at one of the clearest examples of Laura's lies. A user on Twitter, JustGen572, shared a clip captioned, "Watch how easily Laura lies." She denies ever having a sonogram with Greg or sending him one. The video shows Laura sitting with her attorney on December 13th, 2024, 8 months after we'd already discovered the original image complete with the Fiverr watermark. She had tried to erase that watermark using a reverse image tool, but we found it live during a stream. That evidence will appear in the upcoming documentary. And in that same video, Laura confidently repeats her false claims, lies that she's now finally being held accountable for. Gillespie. That's the person Laura referred to in her statements. According to her, she was far too early in her pregnancy to have a sonogram, and she claimed the pregnancy ended very early on. However, there have been allegations from Gillespie and Dave Neal that she sent him a sonogram with a Fiverr logo on it, which would suggest deliberate tampering or misrepresentation. When questioned about this, Laura denied it outright, insisting she had no idea what they were talking about. The exchange became more complicated when she was asked to clarify whether she had ever sent a sonogram to Gillespie. Her response was that, while he claimed she did, he also knew she was too early to have a sonogram at the time. She further attempted to justify the contradiction by bringing up her abortion coercion lawsuit, alleging that he had forced her to terminate the pregnancy. But the facts as they stand tell a very different story. Gillespie did not force her to take any action. According to reports, Laura herself stated, "If you agree to date me, I'll get an abortion," to which he agreed. Afterwards, he reportedly backed out, and there was no evidence of coercion, no pills, no threats, nothing that would constitute force. The entire claim falls apart under scrutiny, yet it adds to the chaotic narrative that surrounds her actions. Adding another layer to the drama, she apparently keeps a so-called naughty list, which includes me and Omar. Omar later represented Mike Maruccini, another victim in this tangled situation, and fortunately, the restraining order she filed against him has now been dropped. Overall, it's been nothing but a string of losses for Laura and her legal team. Despite all the time, energy, and attention poured into these claims, her attorney didn't even secure a paycheck for his efforts. He ended up with nothing more than a DUI trial as a consolation. It's a bewildering, almost surreal situation that combines personal drama, legal battles, and public scrutiny, and it serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of manipulation, dishonesty, and trying to rewrite events after the fact. The situation remains one of the most bizarre and convoluted cases circulating in recent times, and it underscores just how important transparency and evidence are when claims of this magnitude are made. As we know by now, Justin Baldoni was the subject of a widely circulated article by TMZ on Halloween, and they got it completely wrong. The piece didn't just imply that his legal battles were over, it practically declared it outright, claiming there were no remaining avenues for his defamation suit, even though in reality, he is still fully entitled to appeal. Rolling Stone and other outlets repeated similar inaccuracies, which only added to the confusion. But now, we're finally getting to the real story and the finer details. TMZ has essentially admitted their coverage was incorrect, and this clarification comes in the context of an interview on the Two Angry Men podcast with Brian Freridman, who is at the center of Baldoni's legal team. The podcast featured Harvey Levin, the creator of TMZ, who asked Freridman some pointed questions about the case. During the interview, Levin asked how the deposition of Blake Lively had gone. Freridman confirmed that he had indeed taken her deposition, but when pressed for details, he remained cautious, noting that he wasn't allowed to divulge specifics. When asked more broadly whether the deposition provided material that could undermine Lively's sexual harassment claims, he responded carefully but optimistically. He expressed that he was looking forward to the trial, which has been a long time coming, and acknowledged that the media coverage had been one of the most challenging aspects of this case. Freridman explained that mainstream media has repeatedly misrepresented the facts, twisting words and spinning stories in ways that distort what has actually happened. He noted that one reason for these distortions is the presence of high-powered connections within the industry. Media outlets have relationships with major figures, including Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, as well as top-level talent agencies and producers. That access can create bias, whether intentional or not, and influence how stories are reported. Freridman emphasized, however, that it's not necessarily a matter of being pro-Blake. Rather, mainstream media tends to exaggerate and sensationalize details because it drives clicks, views, and engagement. Headlines are often crafted to attract attention, regardless of context or accuracy. Finally, Freridman shared insight into strategy, hinting that the leverage gained from his careful legal maneuvers and the upcoming trial could potentially be used as a bargaining tool in settlement discussions. Golden, responding to Freridman's remarks, suggested that the legal team sees the trial not just as a path to justice, but also as a position of strength for negotiations, underscoring the complex interplay between media coverage, legal strategy, and public perception in high-profile cases like this one. Now, here's where things really get interesting. This is the moment when Brian Freridman directly confronts Harvey Levin, yes, the founder of TMZ, about the outlet's misreporting on Justin Baldoni's appeal and, perhaps even more importantly, their failure to ever issue a proper correction. Freridman doesn't hold back. He looks Harvey squarely in the eye and asks, "How did you get the story wrong about the appeal?" It's a simple question, but it cuts straight to the core of journalistic accountability. Harvey, to his credit, doesn't deflect with hostility. He takes a deep breath and replies, "Well, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus in my office." He doesn't name names, but the implication is clear. Someone at TMZ dropped the ball. Freridman presses a little further, suggesting that perhaps a staffer had simply misread or misunderstood the court documents. And that's when the irony hits. With modern tools like ChatGPT, it's easier than ever to verify what a court order or ruling actually says. You can upload a motion or a decision, and within seconds, get a clear, accurate summary of its contents. The kicker? Harvey Levin himself is a former practicing attorney. You'd think someone with a legal background and a full newsroom staff could have figured it out before publishing something so misleading. Harvey eventually admits, "I know. And here's the thing. I think it was analyzed wrong. I don't know all the specifics, but I know how this thing went down. Once I got involved, it was obvious our story was wrong. My goal then was simple. If we're wrong, we need to correct it. Tell me what's inaccurate and let's fix it." Fair enough. The problem, however, is that no such correction ever appeared. Normally, when TMZ updates a piece, you'll see a clear note within the article, update or correction. But in this case, there's nothing. Maybe, at best, they quietly tweaked the headline. But the body of the article? Still misleading. Independent journalist Katie Joy, known online as Without a Crystal Ball, was one of the first to call it out. She posted publicly that the judge's order was unambiguous. The court would not even consider allowing an appeal until attorney's fees had been determined. Katie said she personally messaged a TMZ producer on Saturday, attaching the actual court order and explaining the mistake. According to her, the producer read the message but never responded and never corrected the article. That's the frustrating part. We're living in an era where YouTubers, podcasters, and independent creators are often doing better investigative journalism than multi-million-dollar media outlets. It's exhausting to see independent commentators fact-checking professional newsrooms, but that's the reality. As Freridman pointed out, this wasn't a matter of opinion, it was a factual error. Harvey eventually tried to clarify, saying, "It was just analyzed wrong. The timeline wasn't calculated properly. I think when the motion was filed, someone assumed that started the countdown for appeal, but that wasn't correct. It was a misunderstanding of when the final judgment was actually entered." At that point, Freridman, ever the professional, lightens the tone slightly. "I'm going to come to your defense, Har," he says, almost smiling. And that moment, small as it is, captures something important. It's not just about TMZ getting a story wrong, it's about how easily misinformation spreads when accuracy takes a back seat to speed and sensationalism. In the end, it's a revealing exchange between two experienced professionals, one fighting for truth in a high-stakes legal battle, and the other representing a media empire trying to keep pace in a world where even the smallest mistake can spiral into a headline of its own. Well, I'm not asking for much here, but seriously, are they even going to let the other side speak, or is it going to be one-sided chaos? From what it looks like, the error likely originated with someone on the overnight TMZ crew. You know how it goes. The overnight team wraps up, goes home, and by the time anyone realizes there's a mistake, the story has already gone live. And of course, when something goes wrong, the first person to blame is an intern. That seems to be the unspoken rule of tabloid journalism. But as the old saying goes, a lie travels around the world twice before the truth even puts on its shoes. And in this case, it couldn't be more accurate. One small misstep, and suddenly every outlet is repeating misinformation as fact, creating a cascade of false narratives that are incredibly difficult to correct. Meanwhile, Nick Vell didn't exactly help matters. Instead of verifying or correcting his story, he took an early victory lap, celebrating a narrative that wasn't true. There he was, pompous and smug, relishing in a story that later proved to be a false start. Meanwhile, Eric is quietly countersuing and taking losses that rarely make it into public conversation. It's fascinating how much of this unfolds off the radar, almost as if he has some kind of hidden influence online. There's clearly a PR campaign working behind the scenes, shaping the narrative and controlling perception in ways that the mainstream audience rarely sees. And then there's that irresistible feeling of, "I told you so." It never gets old. Sometimes it's the small victories, the moments when the facts eventually catch up with premature assumptions, that are the most satisfying. If you're going to lose your voice over anything these days, it's worth spending it making fun of someone like Nick Vell. It's just too easy, given the pattern of errors and the premature declarations of victory. On a related note, let's turn to Not Actually Golden and her take on the Baldoni case. There's a palpable sense of ego in the mix, a high-stakes negotiation masked as courtroom bravado. Brian Freriedman talks about looking forward to taking the case to trial, and while it might sound like a boast, the reality is strategic. Going to trial can create leverage for a settlement. The courtroom is not just a place for justice, it's a negotiating tool. Everyone involved knows that a settlement is often the safest, most predictable outcome, but trials carry the potential for truth to come out in full view of the public. Golden's commentary underscores why trials matter. A jury sees who Justin Baldoni really is in all his complexity. That kind of scrutiny is classic leverage, essentially asking the other side, do you really want to roll the dice? Behind the scenes, conversations, subtle pressures, and strategic posturing all play a role. Astonishingly, nobody seemed to point out that a dispositive motion on all of Blake Lively's major claims is already sitting on the table, a legal maneuver that could drastically change the dynamics of any trial. If you're Blake Lively, surrounded by yes-men and advisors, you might feel confident pushing forward, but from a rational perspective, the risks are enormous. The trial could be expensive, public, and unpredictable. And yet the potential gains in leverage and exposure remain tempting. Some people even approach trials with surprisingly trivial personal motives.